Hello everyone, welcome to the Centrics United BU series. Today I'm here with Carrie Long. How are you?
Good.
Yay.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Awesome. So give me just like a timeline from like where you were and what you were doing from birth to right now.
Oh, wow.
Brief timeline.
Okay. Man, that's a loaded question.
It's a big question.
Okay,
for sure.
brief. So I was born in Western North Carolina. I'm a mountain girl, right? So Appalachia. And then I grew up, like did a lot of sports, loved school. I'm a huge nerd, as you will see. Like, you know me. And so then I ended up going to college. I studied biology. I did like pole vaulting and volleyball. So I was like a two-sport athlete. And then I got my PhD in immunology and microbial pathogenesis, which is like, it's like how your body fights off like bugs, I guess would be the best way to put it. And then moved out to Montana and started a job at Rocky Mountain Labs, which is an NIH laboratory, as a postdoc, and now I actually have my own lab there. And yeah, I have a lot of hobbies, and I'm kind of weird. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Like awesome timeline.
Yeah.
That was really, really good. Let's talk about college sports.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about your college sport history.
Okay, so when I was in high school, like I did a ton of sports from like elementary school to high school, right? Like I was just super active. I'm also like almost 6 feet tall, and so I was like certain sports I was very good at. Like I didn't do gymnastics, let's put it that way. But I ended up in high school starting volleyball, and I did track, which I was always like a runner, but I actually pole vaulted. Started that my freshman year, started volleyball my freshman year, and then I did swimming for like my whole life. And so I ended up deciding I wanted to do two sports in college. And so I got recruited for those individual sports from like very big schools. But I was like, no, I want to do both sports. I want to do volleyball and track. So I went to a small D1 university called Gardner-Webb University. It's like a small Christian university. But I still got to compete with all the best people, right?
Yeah.
So I did that in undergrad. It was awesome. I was already really used to like time management and just like, being able to be like super nerdy, but also be an athlete. And so I got hurt. I got a stress fracture 1 year. So in the NCAA, you can get an extra year, like a redshirt year.
Sure, yeah.
So I took that in undergrad, and then I actually pole vaulted my first year of my PhD at West Virginia University.
Oh, cool.
Which
That's
is like
awesome.
a little bit, like higher level. And that was really fun. I don't think that's kind of weird, but yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they've been a huge part of my life, and now I am really active, and I've learned like snowboarding, as you know. You know me on the hill. And yeah, it's a huge part of my life.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
awesome.
Like the teamwork, camaraderie, the just like physical activity.
Yeah.
I think I would
Absolutely,
be
yeah.
struggling. I mean, you're the same way.
Sure.
I know
Sports like translates to so
Yeah.
many things in real life. That is super good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was like your best height in pole vaulting? Do you remember?
3.75 meters.
3.75
Yeah.
meters. How many feet is that? That's really good.
It's almost 13 feet, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Sweet.
no, I was pretty good. So I guess when I started in high school, I was very lucky to randomly have this coach that coached an Olympian. Just like he lived in my hometown. He was like retired. And he would kind of come in, and if there were any like promising kids, he'd coach them.
Sure.
And so I didn't know what I was doing. I just saw like, oh, that looks cool. And so I walked over, and I always thought there's a misconception, I think, that's popular, that pole vaulters have to be small and they have to do gymnastics.
Right.
But actually at the highest level, they're like me. They're tall and they're muscular, and they can put a ton of power and have like a higher like approach, I guess, angle than like a short person. So I thought I was going to be horrible, and he's like, no,
Perfect.
you.
Yeah. That's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pole vaulting. Yeah,
so
I
fun.
tried it and it didn't go like as
You would have been
well
good
as
at it. You just have to like keep with it.
I don't get scared normally, but like it would freak me out.
No, it can be.
Yeah. That like getting inverted feeling.
Yeah.
So strange.
And if your steps are off, so if you plant
Yeah.
too far, it can be. Let me just
Scary
say,
sport.
more guys get hurt than girls. Let me just say that. I think guys are more
Okay, sure.
They're willing to take risks and
Yeah.
do like honestly kind of stupid stuff. So
Sure. Yeah, cool. Well, that's
like,
awesome.
Yeah.
So what made you want to get the degree that you got? And can you say that, what was it again?
So yes, it's a PhD, so a doctor of philosophy in immunology and microbial pathogenesis. So let me explain. I know it's like we're getting into the jargon area, but so immunology is a study of how your body protects itself.
Sure.
So allergies fall into it. So allergies are like when your body tries to protect itself against something it doesn't need to, whether it's your body or like pollen, right? And then that's what I studied in grad school, but I'm more now into how your body protects itself against like bacteria and viruses, stuff like that. So the immunology part is how your body protects itself. The microbial pathogenesis is how microbes, so viruses, bacteria, fungi, how they can cause disease in humans, right? So it's a combo degree. So when I knew my parents are both physicians, they're both anesthesiologists, so I always love when they would come home and be like telling us about some crazy case. My sister is like has an adverse reaction to any kind of gore or blood, so she would like leave the room and be like gagging.
Sure.
Like she was definitely a black sheep. So I knew I wanted to do something with biology, but I was afraid of the emotional toll that medicine would take on me. So
Okay.
I'm very empathetic, and I was afraid that if I became a physician, I'd get too tied up with like, you know, the lives of the patients and just like if
Sure.
people. Yeah, so
That's
I wanted to
hard,
help
yeah.
people, but I wanted to do it like from a little bit of a distance, I
Yeah,
guess.
absolutely.
So yeah, I knew I wanted to do that. I loved infectious diseases, like just from when I was a kid on. I think I saw a picture of like a bacteriophage. So it's like a virus that can infect bacteria. Have you ever seen one? It looks like a little hexagon on like a stand. That's
Oh,
like a
sure.
T4 bacteriophage.
Okay, yeah.
I saw it in a kid's book one time and I was like, that. Like,
That's cool.
it sounds so stupid, but like that is how.
That's so
yeah.
interesting.
So I got into that and I knew I wanted to do infectious diseases. So I ended up at West Virginia, and I actually did a lot of my graduate work with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, so the CDC.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so
sure.
that's why I went there. So I had a really cool opportunity there. And then, yeah, when I moved to Montana, I got more into the infectious disease, which is not what you asked about, but yes.
No, but that's so
Yeah.
interesting.
No,
Thank
I
you
knew
for
I wanted to do
sharing.
infectious diseases. It was like the coolest thing. And I knew I wanted to, you know, work in a lab in like a suit. Like that
Yeah.
was just, I was like, yes.
Okay.
I'm built for that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So your work now,
Yeah.
you mentioned you have your own lab. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I am a principal investigator for the National Institutes of Health, and I have to do the disclaimer. So
Yes, go ahead.
Everything I'm saying is my personal opinion, is not necessarily reflective of the NIH. But yes, I have my own lab, and so my official, I'm gonna give you more jargon. My official title is Earl Statman Investigator. So
Okay.
yeah, it's this whole program. It's like you get selected if you're like the top. It's a whole thing. I feel very lucky, but essentially I run my own lab.
Okay.
And so we study immunology against bacteria. So how our body responds to bacteria that are called pathogens. So
Sure.
they typically cause disease, right?
Okay, yeah.
We study some weird ones that I'm sure nobody's ever heard of. But yeah, so I get suited up, and I mean, it's the biosafety level 3 lab that I work in. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what I do. I don't know.
Interesting.
Have a whole team of like trainees. We all work together, and employees, and yeah.
That's awesome.
It's so cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
What's-
ultimate teamwork.
What's like your favorite thing that
Oh my
you've
gosh.
discovered, like with this
Ooh.
job?
Okay, so let me see how I can condense this. Okay, abridged version. So I study a bacteria. My primary focus of our lab is Coxiella burnetii. It's named after people. It has a horrible name, but it essentially causes a disease called Q fever in humans. Okay, so it has a crazy, interesting history, and it really doesn't show up a lot in the U.S., but it's always associated typically with like livestock. So
Okay.
typically people who work around animals will get infected. It's a big problem in Australia and other places, and like
Okay.
for the military overseas. But I didn't know anything about bacteria really, like truly, whenever I started as a postdoc. So that was almost 10 years ago. And so I guess the coolest thing that we've discovered is, so learned all about this bacteria. It's got a lot of weird attributes, and I cannot get into it. You do not have enough time. You'll be like, I'm falling asleep. But basically there's something odd about the bacteria that is unique to that specific bacteria. And it's something that kind of changes very promiscuously. So it's a genetic thing. So we discovered that. And that's cool, right? And just mechanistically, but we discovered it and we learned that it could actually have implications for people's safety in the lab.
okay.
So it was like a thing that had been happening since the 1930s, since this bacteria was discovered.
Jeez.
But like nobody had really known about it because we did like very specific work, like work that nobody else is really doing.
Sure.
So we figured that out. It was like terrifying. And then we had to go through like the steps to how to like make a strain where it wouldn't be a problem. And so it was kind of like something that was really cool that we figured out. We were like, oh my gosh, this actually matters. And then we kind of made like a fix for it, if
Sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And it caused like, nobody ever cares, I feel like, about the bacteria I study generally compared to something like, you know, HIV or some other disease that affects many more people. But it was really cool to like, to see that, but like be able to fix it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know. Like, so I cannot, again, it's way too like, too detailed, but yeah, that was the coolest thing. It was seeing a problem that we discovered and then being able to fix it and having people be like, oh, cool. Like,
That and recognize it.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
and actually care about the bacteria that we study.
yeah,
right?
and like you discovered that.
Yeah, our
like,
lab.
That is
yeah, our
so
group.
sick. Yeah,
and it was
absolutely.
not just me, right? It's like my whole lab. It
Sure.
was
Team,
other
yeah.
people. Yeah, and so all of us were like, wow, this is like really matters, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So like COVID-19, right?
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like a big world issue
Yeah.
for a time. Did you have like anything involved with that, or did you?
Yeah.
Or what did your time with like during COVID
Yeah,
look
yeah.
like
Oh my
as a
gosh.
scientist?
It was rough. So I had just started my principal investigator position like right before that. I started in
jeez.
October
Okay.
of 2019. And so it was really hard. But basically what my group did is everything stopped. So I study a bacteria. SARS-CoV-2 is a virus that causes COVID-19. So I'm not a virologist. We
Sure.
have a whole group of virologists at the lab. And so our work just got stopped because the priority was like, go study COVID, find a vaccine, which
Right.
actually our lab like contributed to that, which is really cool.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so
Okay.
my group, we just stayed home, we worked remotely, we wrote a lot of papers.
Okay.
So that was good, it was nice to get caught up. And then I did get asked to help with some animal studies at the lab because of my expertise with high containment work.
Sure.
Because you have to work with SARS-CoV-2 and high containment.
Right.
So I did get involved in some vaccine development studies, which was really cool.
Sure.
So it was nice to be able to like go in and actually feel like you were maybe helping.
Sure.
But I have to say, yeah, I'm not a virologist.
Sure,
I
yeah,
hate viruses,
yeah.
they're so weird. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, so it was really nice to be able to do that and really cool to be a part of that response.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned like the animal studies.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that look like in a lab? It's
Yeah.
I bet it's hard to describe without like seeing like picture
It
and video.
is,
But
conceptually, yeah.
What does that look like? Like I feel like a lot of people don't understand what that actually
For sure.
looks like.
So you have to have like a lot of infrastructure for it, right? So not every university, every research facility really has those capabilities, but we have a fantastic infrastructure for it. We have an entire branch called Rocky Mountain Veterinary Branch.
Okay.
And it's veterinarians, animal caretakers, like all these specialized people that are wonderful. Like what they do is like lab animals, right?
Yeah.
So that's necessary. So you have to have a vivarium, which just means a place for the animals to live,
Sure.
right? So that would, if you try to think of what that would look like, we just got a new one. Basically, it's like, you know, the animals have their cages to live in and they have all their food and people are coming in and checking on them and we have specialized areas where you can infect them. Yeah, you can look up this stuff online, I think, for the most part. But yeah, essentially it's this huge like enterprise, and so you can order animals. Sometimes they breed animals at the lab.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and I think at the lab we've got anything from mice all the way up to non-human primates.
Sure.
And so I primarily work with mice and guinea pigs, so pretty small rodents. But yeah, it's just like essentially we're very lucky that we have people that care for the animals and do all that for us, and we just are, you know, expected to do the experimentation and to
Sure.
treat them humanely and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And yeah,
That'd be such a fun job.
It's-
Like just taking care of the animals.
yeah.
Wow, that's sweet.
Yeah,
Very
there are
cool.
a lot of caretaker positions,
Absolutely.
and yeah, they're wonderful. Like they're so good with the animals,
Sure.
and yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the lab that you work at, Rocky Mountain Laboratories. did I
Yes.
get that? Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. I just want to make sure I got
Yeah,
that correct.
RML is like the
Right,
slang.
RML, yeah. The reason that lab there, I feel like the history is super
Oh my
interesting.
gosh,
Do you
I
want
could
to just
talk
like
about it
talk
for-
about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'll try to condense it. I'm
Sure.
trying. I love it. So the lab was established, not really officially, but back in the turn of the century, so the 1800s.
Yeah.
And in Hamilton, in the Bitterroot Valley specifically, a lot of people were suffering from what was colloquially known as black measles. Nobody knew what caused it, what was happening, but they knew that most people who were getting sick were on the west side. So we're right now in the Sapphires, where our place is. So only in the Bitterroot Mountains, right? And they were getting literally black measles. So these disgusting like pustules would form, and a lot of people died. I mean, the fatality rate was quite high.
That's crazy.
And so nobody knew what was happening. So back east, we didn't really have like an NIH. Like there wasn't a lot of like structured infectious disease type research, but there was the United States Public Health Service, so USPHS. So their mission is to like go out to outbreaks and, you know, take care of public health basically. And so they sent a couple scientists out, and they literally worked in like tents
Jeez.
in the valley, and they were like, what's happening? Is there some animal transmitting this? Is it a bacteria? Is it a virus? Like, what is this? And so they figured out that it was caused by a bacteria called Rickettsia rickettsii. It's named after Howard Ricketts. He's a very famous physician from Chicago who came out and actually discovered the bacteria. Turns out it lives in ticks. And the type of tick that causes it, or ticks that cause it, they're called Rocky Mountain wood ticks primarily, and they only really live on
In
the
this
west
area.
side.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why people were getting sick. And so
Wow.
the Rocky Mountain spotted fever vaccine, I should say, Rickettsia rickettsii causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. That was the black measles.
Sure.
That was also characterized here, and then vaccines were made. So they basically take ticks that had been infected and like essentially inactivate them by like chemicals and just like make a slurry and inject that into people. So you can imagine it wasn't like the
That
most
is
well tolerated thing, but
crazy.
it did prevent people from dying, right? So that was the start of RML. It went from tents to a cabin to a schoolhouse in Victor known as the House of Crawling Death because of all the ticks that were in it.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Horrifying, right? Yeah, things are,
no.
it would be, what a time to be alive. And then it went to the current lab we have now. So one brick building was erected, and then the USPHS basically gave it to the National Institutes of Health, which
Sure.
were kind of a new, like, burgeoning, like, kind of biomedical research, like, enterprise, right, that the government funds. And then RML just expanded. And And so we got our BSL-3, so our high containment lab in the mid 2000s, and we got our BSL-4, which is maximum containment, in I think also like 2007 or something. I can't remember. I wasn't here.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the bacteria I study is also crazy, like the story, but yeah, again, really cool.
Yeah,
you can look it all up online, but yeah, it's a really cool place to work. Yeah, okay, so nerdy backstory about the bacteria that I study, Coxiella burnetii. So back in, I believe, it's probably not exactly correct, in the 1930s, RML scientists were doing tick surveys. They take these sheets and just go on all the foliage and get ticks, right?
Yeah.
Because they were interested in Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And they found, they would take the ticks, they put them on guinea pigs to feed, and there was like a very specific type of reaction the guinea pigs got if it was rickettsia, which is all that they'd ever discovered from the ticks, right? Sure. And so then one guinea pig didn't have that reaction, but it got sick. It got a fever and stuff, but it didn't have the other like hallmarks of disease. And they were like, what is this? So it was an unknown fever causing agent.
Sure.
It was so small, they thought it was a virus. Turns out it was a bacteria, and it was Coxiella burnetii, which causes Q fever. So they found it in ticks in Montana the same year, which is just wild to me. In Australia, abattoir workers, so people who worked in meatpacking factories, they were getting really sick with this like febrile illness that wasn't the flu. It was awful. It was like debilitating, and nobody could figure out what was causing it. And they're like, so they called it Q fever for query, like question mark.
Oh, okay.
That's what we still call it. So it's Q fever. And so then that year they both published their findings. So in RML they published like, fever causing agent we found in ticks, and then they were like, okay, unknown fever causing agent causing outbreaks in Australia. And again, like through snail mail, so I think there were some samples that were sent, and they could test like the blood of people who'd been sick with like the antibodies from the guinea pigs, and they figured out that was the agent and that was the disease same year. Like it just appeared. Crazy. Yeah, and I'm sure it had been, it's endemic, which means it's been like Coxiella is here, right? It's in the soil, it's whatever. But yeah, isn't that wild?
Wow, that's crazy.
And then,
from Australia to here.
You're gonna kill me. Oh my god, you're gonna have to cut down so much stuff. Then craziness. So then one of the scientists is named after Harold Cox, so Coxiella. He was actually growing this bacteria in egg yolks, and that was something you couldn't do with bacteria like rickettsia. And so the head of the NIH, the head of the NIH was in Bethesda, Maryland, right, which is where our main campus is. He took the train back in the 1940s out to RML. So he took the train to Missoula, and I don't even know if he took like a coach or something. Sure. Like I don't know. Took it to RML, and he was like, I quote, "I don't believe a damn word you said, Dr. Cox, about," he's like, "you can't grow these bacteria in egg yolks, right?" So he came here to see it, was like, oh my gosh, he's doing it. And then he got Q fever. Because they didn't have their standards were lower for biosafety back in the day. They didn't have like high containment labs. That's crazy. So he was the first patient to track his fever response. So on the train from Missoula, this has been published. His name is Rolla Dyer. So we have that strain. It's called the Dyer strain. And literally he tracked his fever. So he was the first kind of like well-described case of Q fever because he did it himself. Because isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
So that's just I honestly want to write a book about Q fever one day.
You should. You know so much about it.
No, but I think people would find it fascinating. I think with all things like infectious diseases, there's so much history and so many like
the history
people.
is very cool.
Yeah,
the science and then the history go hand in hand. Something about like science, I feel like, especially with this like new generation of people coming up, a lot of people I've noticed like feel like science isn't as important as it used to be, or like we've already discovered everything. Why? Can you just explain like why science is still just so important?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. I mean, we have definitely not discovered anything. Well, I only think we've scratched the surface. Sure. Just as a giant concept, science. I mean, we are discovering new things every day. And even this niche bacteria that I study, right, and the disease it caused, like there's so much we don't know, like basic things, right?
Which is
because
crazy.
We just haven't had the time, the resources, like to study it all, right? And so I would say that, and I'm obviously I'm biased, and I have this perspective that's very like immunology, infectious disease, biomedical science focused. But as a whole, like to me, science is a study of the world and life, right? Like it's a study of everything. And I would assume most people could agree that like we don't know everything. Like we don't know everything about the world. Like so there's always going to be, just from a curiosity standpoint, there will always be like room for science for people. But I think more importantly, it's the fact that it can help people, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's why I think most scientists are in the game. At least that's why I'm in, because it's like I want to try to improve human health. I want to prevent someone from having to suffer, right, from an infectious disease or something. So I think that even with very well studied, well funded, like topics, like again HIV has been one, we still don't know everything. We still need better treatments, right?
Absolutely.
So from my little like angle of the world, science is quite important because it's a study of life, and life can be hard.
Yeah.
You know, and there are problems that we need to fix. And so again, infectious diseases, and not to mention, I mean, it's not just the diseases we know. Like, there are emerging diseases. SARS-CoV-2 is a perfect example, right?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Because there's SARS that happened before that. There's MERS, Middle Eastern Respiratory. They're all coronaviruses, but you know, they're adapted to like hosts in certain places. And so I'm not a virologist, but I think in that sense, it's like they're emerging viruses. They're bacteria that are becoming antibiotic resistant to every antibiotics we have, right?
That's
like,
crazy.
Yeah, tuberculosis, like staphylococcus. So I think we absolutely do not know everything.
Right.
Like, that's a lot of hubris to think that humans know everything, right? Like,
for sure.
Come on, guys. Which I think of why is religion is so important, right? Because I think it can kind of address some of those questions. But
absolutely, that's awesome.
There's always going to be a need for science in my mind.
For sure, that's awesome. Like, I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah, oh my
super
God.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, what would you want that we haven't discussed already? Just tell people about yourself, like bragging hour. Like,
I can't. Brag.
I know it's
oh my
hard,
gosh, I can't
but
do it.
you can do this.
Well, let me think what would be interesting.
Brag to the people.
Okay, so I can say something because it's BU, right? ECCENTRIC United.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like I'm very privileged in a lot of ways, right? Like, just from life and stuff, and I acknowledge that. But I will say that, like, there have been times you can look at me. I probably don't look like a typical scientist, right? I'm not the like Albert Einstein in a lab coat. It has been hard sometimes to be a woman or express myself, right? Whether it's like fashion or my temperament, right? I'm not a typical scientist. I tend to be a lot more like, what's the word? I don't know. I just have a different vibes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that if you have the privilege and it works, if you can just be true to yourself and find environments where you're celebrated, where you're wanted. Like, I went, like, the reason why I went to the schools I went to, it's not because they were the most like prestigious or like fancy or people would be amazed. It's like, no, that is the place where I will succeed. Like, they like me here. They want me. I can, like, So I would say to anybody, like, it's not really advice. I still don't know anything really, but I would just say if you can be true to yourself and you can find the environment and the people to support you, like that has been the best part of my life. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And like
Very
having
cool.
the people, like the students being able to mentor and be mentored by people, like constantly learning. I don't know. I would say that that's what I'm trying to do in life.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
Every day I feel more like myself, right?
Yeah.
So I'm 35
Okay, sure.
and it's like, sometimes
every day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, you probably know what I mean. I
Absolutely. No,
which is why I love this.
I feel that. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's funny. The last question I was just going to ask you, which is a question I've asked every single person, is ECCENTRIC's tagline is "Be you."
Yeah.
But you already just covered all of that.
I mean,
feel like,
if you're able, and I understand, like, again, the privilege and stuff. Like, sometimes you can't, right? You just have to like make money to survive or whatever.
Sure.
But like, it's like if you can be you. I never thought, like, when I was a young kid or, you know, even in like grad school, I never thought that I'd be like living my dream in Montana with a dream job that I didn't even know existed, that like I did not ever feel qualified for. I had to get encouragement from my mentors, many women that were like, no, you are qualified for this and you need to apply. And then
That's
I
awesome.
did it. And I guess it's just like, it can be really hard sometimes, especially like in my experience as a woman who's like not the conventional scientist. Like, it can be hard, but like, I've been true to myself and I've been so lucky to have great mentors and support and
awesome.
my family. And and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, you get to a place and you're just like, how is this my life?
How did this happen? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so cool.
So maybe for younger people who are struggling, like, you know, like they're not fitting in or they don't feel like people appreciate them or they don't know what their like mission in life is, or like for me it came, right? And I found my niche and I am so lucky.
Sure.
So
yeah, absolutely.
happy.
And would you say that like if you weren't true to yourself, like this wouldn't have happened?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
And if I would have had different values, so I think if I would have again chosen a place because it was prestigious versus a place that I really felt like I could succeed personally,
right,
I would definitely, I mean, just objectively I wouldn't be here, right?
Sure.
But I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I'm just really happy because I feel like I'm just happy I've been able to do that, right?
Absolutely. That's so cool.
So maybe, I don't know if that helps anybody, but like, yeah.
That is so
I guess
awesome.
that's kind of the ethos, right?
Yeah,
But,
absolutely. Yeah, you killed it. I thought it was great.
Okay. Like, I don't really have anything else because I just talked about
awesome.
nerdy stuff. But
that was so awesome. Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to add or plug
Nerdy
or like
stuff,
direct people towards?
Oh, no, not really.
Sure.
Yeah, because I do a lot of like hobbies and stuff, but I'm just like a scientist professionally.
Sure.
So,
yeah. You can talk about your hobbies.
Hobbies? What could be? I do love baking because it's like science.
Yeah.
So I love to make like French pastry. particularly macarons.
Okay.
And things like croissants.
Yep.
I mean, you've enjoyed them.
I have. Picture of me eating them right here.
Exactly. I wish I had some we could like show off, but I guess that's another thing too, is like having those outlets, because baking to me is science.
Yeah.
But it's creative, it's innovative, right? Which
Right.
a lot of people don't really like. I didn't appreciate that with science until I got older, right? That
Sure.
I am creative and like we're innovative, right? It's just kind of a form of art. But that baking is the same way, but you get to eat it. Yeah. Like the product is not a vaccine, which is it's great, but like it's like a macaroni or something. So yeah, being able to have those outlets has been huge for me.
Okay,
right?
that's awesome.
And like physical activity.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's so important in my mind, is not just focusing on one thing and getting so like inundated with work that you get burnt out and stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
Like no stress baking.
Yeah, stress baking.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Okay, cool.
I'm sure someone could relate. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else. Sure. Hopefully that was interesting.
Awesome. No, you did great. You're so interesting, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I think we did it.